welcome. Welcome to React Native Community Kraków meetup here in the Software Mansion office. Hello to everyone watching us right now on YouTube. My name is Kacper. I'm a software engineer in the React Native open source team at Software Mansion, and I'm very happy to be a host for tonight for you. We have an amazing lineup today. We have 4 amazing speakers. And all of the speakers, I'm very happy to say, are contributing to open source daily. The first presentation will be a short intro from me, what's new and interesting in React Native. Second presentation today will be by Jacek Pudysz from Codemask, Universal Styling with Unistyles. He's the creator of Unistyles, so probably has something interesting to say about it. Next, by Szymon Rybczak from Callstack, about the cutting-edge React server components and React server components in React Native. And last but not least, Tymoteusz Boba from Software Mansion is React Native ready for Maestro. Okay, what's new in React Native? First piece of news I have for you is bridgeless mode. So in the next version of React Native, the version 74, bridgeless mode will be made by default in the new architecture. But what does it mean? So after many years of development in the new architecture, the React team has one goal in mind. At least that was mostly a main feature, was removing the bridge. And the goal is huge because everything in React Native based on bridge. Bridge is a way of passing the data between the JS side of the app to the native side and between. And they've removed the bridge in the new architecture, at least the native parts, so like native calls with turbo modules, and it's using JSI underneath. Next part was to remove a bridge from updating the components, and that was possible by introducing of Fabric renderer, which also uses JSI underneath. And the third part was everything else. So for example, error messages, error handling, and event emitters, and that's all called bridgeless mode. And if you're a library maintainer, you have to make your library work with bridgeless mode. Luckily, you have Wojtek, and he migrated a couple of our libraries, like React Native Screens, React Native SVG, and Gesture Handler, also Safe Area Context, I think, and he's right now working on reanimated, support for reanimated for bridgeless mode. And why is it important? Because in the next version, in 75, I think, the new architecture will be made as default. So if we don't migrate to bridgeless mode and other stuff, we are all screwed. Don't worry, there's a compatibility layer. Hopefully it will work. Next, React DOM for native. React DOM for native is a different name for React Strict DOM. Is something kind of like React Native Web, because currently in React Native, we make our applications by default on Android and iOS, and we think about adding web as like an afterthought. Like later on, we'll add web to our application. And on the browsers, like the React is the default way of building apps. So we add web as a third platform. With React Strict DOM, you kind of build your app with just HTML, with buttons, with paragraphs and headers, and underneath it will be a native component on the React Native, and you build with web first in mind, but it's also working on Android and iOS. And if you know React Native, that's very similar to what we know already. So that's pretty cool. Future plans for React. React team has made a very cool blog post about what they've been working on recently for the past couple of months. And the most prominent is React Compiler, which is a promise of better performance both in React and React Native apps, which removes the use of use memo and use callback, and the memoization will be made for you by default, which is pretty cool. Other stuff coming in the next version of React, that's, well, React Compiler, but also React Server Components and Server Actions, which Szymon will hopefully tell you about today. Also document metadata, which is something that currently React Helmet does for you. So support for meta tags on your websites. And asset loading via suspense. This is something that Next.js and other frameworks like Explorator will support for you. This is not something you add yourself to your app. This is supported by frameworks. And yeah, probably a very important event in the React Conf universe, that is the conference on which they will probably announce some cool stuff in React and React Native. But speaking of conferences, a week later, in May, there also will be our conference, App.js, which is focused on React Native and Expo in Kraków, so not very far away from this office. Something that I'm very happy about, because in the last meetup, we've announced that we are working on live Markdown, so a rich text input in React Native. And I'm very happy to say that it's done. It's there. It's working in production in Expensify. You can install it. You can play around with it because it's open sourced. Yeah, it's done. It's working. Cool. And last but not least, for the news, we've made a new gesture handler docs, which our design team and Patricia, hi Patricia, has developed. And the docs feature a very cool examples. You can play around with the gestures, how they work. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And yeah, we are always looking for speakers for React Native Community Kraków meetup and for other meetups as well. So if you have something to say about React Native, maybe Android as well, and iOS, other stuff connected to React Native, scan the QR code. And sponsored, we are hiring React Native devs, yay. Sponsored slides from Software Mention. Yeah, there is a hard requirement. You need to speak Polish and English as well. Yeah, that's it from me. Next speaker, Jacek Pudysz, Codemask, Universal Styling with Unistyles. Some trivia before Jacek is ready. Jacek came to us from Rzeszów. He had some distance to make, and he is ready now, so I won't be taking any more time.
1, 2, 3, 4. Hello, everyone. Today we will speak about universal styling. My name is Jacek Pudysz. I'm a CTO and co-founder at Codemask. We are a team of developers focused on JavaScript, TypeScript, React Native, and Node.js, so only JavaScript. You can also find me on Twitter and GitHub with the same handle. And I'm also an author of blog, React Native Crossroads, where you can explore some kind of native side of React Native. So give it a try. But today, let's talk about Unistyles. Last time we met here, it was like past year, 9th of November, and Kacper introduced Unistyles. It was like sneak peek of the GSI, of C++, there is no React context, and so on. But at the time, the stable version was 1.1.5, so it was far before the 2.0 stable. And a lot has changed. So the old stack was simple, JavaScript, TypeScript. There is also some kind of hooks from React Native, like use window dimensions, and that's all. And I was wondering, what if I will destroy the connection with React Native? I added C++, of course, and Java native interface, JSI. I connected it to Kotlin, to Objective-C++, and then I was able to call device APIs. Yay! That was the best stack ever, yeah? But people have asked, why? Why I can't run it in Expo? Why can it run a Chrome debugger? Why? Because for me, Unistyles is like a mountain. On the peak, you have like what I can support, what can't be done is here. But for me, I'm focusing on what can be done. And with the new architecture, I can do more. But before we will dive deep into Unistyles, let's take a look on the default way of styling. So you have a style sheet, yeah? You can simply import style sheet from React Native. You can pass object with your styles, and that's all. It works. Of course, you can pass it to view, text, button, whatever you have. But what about color management? Here I hard-coded the colors. What about dark mode support? What about landscape mode? What about save area insets? You need to install one more package. You need to add one more hook. What about bigger screens? For example, you need to target web or desktop. What about variants? How to create multiple variants of typography, of buttons? What about passing dynamic values from JSX? It's not possible with the style sheet. And finally, what's about the accessibility? Forgotten by many developers. And much, much more. You may feel like this, because with style sheet, it's doable, but it's hard. So let's jump quickly into every topic. With Unistyles, you can define your theme. Your theme is just an object. You can accept, you can put here anything, so it accepts everything. And then you can simply import Unistyles, import your theme you created, like I said, any object. And then optionally, if you use TypeScript, I bet you do, you need to create a type and override library type. It guarantees you perfect IntelliSense across all your components. Finally, just register your theme, and that's all. So let's move back to the previous example. We have the same component, but right now, we are using create style sheet. Create style sheet accepts style sheet. If you want, you can use the same style sheet like previously. But if you pass a function, I will automatically inject a theme. Whatever you put there, it's available for you. So you can remove hard-coded colors. And of course, finally, you need to add hook. It glues everything together, yeah? There is no context. I didn't add any provider. There is perfect type inferring. There was no issue about TypeScript whatsoever in version 2.0. You can use your own components, and that was the most important part for me. There is no like Unistyles view, Unistyles text, and so on. You are using React Native components. There is only small performance overhead. You can inject functions. I will show it later. And there is auto-memoization. You don't need to worry about it. Okay. What about dark mode support? It's also easy. Just create a second theme, dark theme, register it with a unique name dark, add it to your themes. You can have as many themes as you want, and you can enable adaptive themes. Adaptive themes means let Unistyles manage your themes by looking at device color scheme. And with that, with no additional line of code, you have auto support for dark mode. Okay, what about safe area insets and context? Yeah. So this is a new feature published 2 days ago. And let's remove justify content from the view. So we will have example below dynamic island. So you would typically need to import React Native safe area context and add additional hook and use inline styles. Not anymore. You can import Unistyles runtime, which is a host object, and I will explain it later. And you can use it directly in your style sheet. Simply Unistyles, simply you need to pass or type Unistyles runtime.inset, and you have everything there. How it will work? It will automatically go below the dynamic island, and we can even go further. So this is additional example. Here we have 4 views, and every view will show you the guidelines. It will work automatically. It's always up to date. and your app will be never covered by any of the hardware stuff. What about bigger screens? Let's say you have a client and you need to support web or desktop. Well, it's also easy. You can simply register breakpoints. You can add them here, so you can replace any value like string or number and replace it with the object, and you will have perfect intelligence about your breakpoints. So for small screens, you will have square because we have border radius 0, and for the landscape, you will have circle. What about even bigger screens? You can use media queries. React Native Unistyles exposes MQUtil, which stands for media queries, and you can build your media queries. Here you have only width from the breakpoint medium to 1000. You will have some kind of greenish color, and you can also use it with height. So it will be border radius 0 for height bigger than 500. How it works? We can show it with React Native Web. As you can see, there is no additional overhead. If you config it once, you have multiple benefits. What about variants? Each style key can also accept reserved word variants. Variant accepts group. For example, color. You may have multiple groups, there is no limit. So for example, here we have color. But you can have another group called size or whatever you want. Inside that, you can declare your variants like primary, secondary, outlined, and so on. Later, you can, for example, inject some kind of prop to React component and pass it to Unistyles hook, and it will automatically select your variant. If you don't pass anything, you can also define default variant. So how it works? You can build your components like typography, buttons, and so on. What about passing values from JSX? So here, I would like to make my box dynamic. So I define a prop called background color, and with the regular style sheet, it's not possible, but here you can simply type a function, call it, change the signature, accept background color, and that's all. It will magically work too. There is, of course, no memorization because I need to call this function each time. And for React Native Web, it will be resolved to the style tag. And last but not least, what about accessibility? React Native Unistyles exposes right now content size category. What is it? Well, if you have some kind of users with limited vision, they may change global font setting about the font size. So here, as you can see, for iOS, we have multiple of them, and you can access them directly right now. This is the first API in Unistyles about accessibility, but as you can see, there is more to come. If you want to learn more about Unistyles, you can visit new cool domain Unistyles and check this awesome unicorn designed by Magda, our graphic designer. But let's move further. Let's talk about universal styling. By universal, we actually mean that we can build our apps on multiple targets like iOS, Android, tablets, macOS, Windows, tvOS, web, server-side rendering for web, and even visionOS. We have a lot of platforms here. But what does it mean exactly? It means that you have a single code base and you have multiple targets. For example, it's iOS, Android, web. It's like the most common one. It's covered by Expo everywhere. And as far as I know, they're working on the tvOS support, but it may be something else like iOS, Android, and visionOS. It depends on you. For web, we have React Native Web, and we have React Strict DOM. So they cover you for the web. But today, I will talk more about desktop. For me, it's the most important or most interesting part because here we have multiple options. We have React Native Web with Tauri. We have React Native Web with Electron. Yeah, you can run actually web app in the Electron and Tauri. But you also have React Native macOS and React Native Windows. So how to stay universal with Unistyles? As of now, as of today, Unistyles supports with Stylesheet, iOS, Android, macOS, and Windows. And with React Native Web, which is also Stylesheet API, web, and server-side rendering. I only miss tvOS and visionOS. But today I will focus on two of them. But wait, what about visionOS? I planned to add support last month, and I planned it even this week, but then Oscar from Callstack made a tweet that he added support for multi-window API. And I thought, damn, Unistyles can't work with multiple windows, so I need to postpone it a little bit. I need to figure it out. But yeah, I will definitely add support for visionOS too. Before we jump into the code, I would like to also explain one more topic, which is host object. Host object is a mysterious term. I didn't understand it too, but imagine that you have two words. You have JavaScript with React Native, and you have C++. And between them, there is something called JSI. You can construct, for example, JavaScript object, totally in C++. You can also create a function, and you can pass it to JavaScript, the same with the function. And if your user will access some kind of property, you will actually call a code on the C++ side. Same with the function. If user will invoke the function, it will literally invoke a function in C++. It's done with global. So for the web, we have window object. For Node.js and React, we have global. We can access some C++ host object stuff with the global. And for me, it's like a ping pong because you can't catch the ball. It's either on the C++ side or JavaScript side. Now, Unistyles was built with a shared core built in C++. Like I was figuring it out to add support for multiple platforms. And one more time, we have JSI, which communicates with the C++, and we have React Native, so you know that. But actually, you have also JSI or Objective-C++ with JSI or JNI with Kotlin or Java that communicates too with the C++ core. And you have platform-specific code and APIs. So imagine that you have event, like one of your users changed the orientation from portrait to landscape. So there is a device event on orientation change. I can actually call it C++ core via JSI and update the value. And later I can, for example, build Unistyles runtime, pass it the updated value, and move it to React Native. And the same goes the other way. So we have action, like your user changes the theme. Yeah? I can also call literally C++ function and update the Unistyles runtime. So that's how Unistyles runtime is always up to date. Again, moving back to the platform-specific code, I would like to start with the React Native macOS. Is it hard to add support for React Native macOS to your React Native library? Well, it's not. You just need to add one more line to the podspec file that indicates that you are supporting macOS, and then you have some kind of iOS-specific code, yeah, because you have your native module, and you need to right now cover the macOS specific code. And by default, you can do that with preprocessor directives. But you will have a lot of ifs in your code. So what I prefer is to create two files. One will be responsible for the iOS code, and the second one for the macOS code. And they can talk with native module with Unistyles. But you may ask, why do I need two files? Is that hard to add additional support for macOS? Well, it's not that hard, but here, for example, I read the initial screen width and height. And this is code for the iOS. So we have UI screen. But for macOS, there is no UI screen. So we need to figure it out. You can access frame with size from NS window. So as you can see, you can't mix iOS with macOS. They look similar, but you need to divide them by to files or to use these ifs. And for example, for the iOS, to listen for content size category changes, you can use this notification center listener. But for macOS, there is no listener. So as you can see, adding support for multiple platforms sometimes is tedious because you need to figure out how to listen to something, or how to update something, or how to access something. But overall, for macOS, it's pretty easy. If you find yourself with iOS code, you can easily jump to macOS. What about React Native Windows? Well, that's the different story. You need to start with the React Native Windows init tool to generate your native module. So you don't need to create anything by yourself from scratch. There is a command, and it will generate you a Windows folder. And the most important part here is React Native Unistyles solution. Solution is like a project, so you can open it with Visual Studio Code. Now, native code for React Native Windows is a little bit different than for iOS or for Android. We also have a macros, like here you have a React module, and there is a struct, so you can easily replace struct with class. It's the same, it's like the privacy, it's only about the privacy. But here we have a struct. And by default, React Native Windows will expose one more macro, React init. So it's like a constructor. It's not like a C++ constructor per se, but that's a constructor in React Native Windows. And here you will get React Native context. And of course, you can use synchronous methods, asynchronous methods, and so on. So that's the bare bone of the native module for Windows. Yeah. Now, there is one caveat. When you try to build your first module with React Native Windows, it will work, and then it will break. And why is that? I left a comment in the React Native Unistyles repository. So it seems that while you are debugging or building your native module, they will inject your native module with native modules. But if you are in release mode or you are not debugging, they will inject turbo module. So that was interesting for me. So here we have turbo module, and here we have native module. So I had to create additional file, Unistyles module.windows.typescript, to actually cover this case. What about sending events? Well, you have one more macro, and here, as a second argument of your module macro, you can pass a name of your emitter. So if you don't do that, you will actually trigger an event to everyone. So everyone from React Native can listen to your events. But here you can be more specific and mention Unistyles. Now, you need to declare your function with additional macro, React event. The first argument is the name of the function, and the second argument is the event that will be called in the JavaScript. And right now, you can call it however you want, from whatever you want in the C++. Now, the last part that took me too long is how to get JSI runtime in React Native Windows. It's not that easy. I had to dig into the React Native Windows code and find this mystic function, try, get, or create context runtime. And from where you will get JSI runtime, and if it's available, you can get JSI runtime. And later you can install your host object, inject something to global, and make everyone happy with always up-to-date Unistyles runtime. So, what's next? How do I see Unistyles in the next few months? For sure, I need to add support for React Native Vision OS with multiple windows and React Native tvOS. I would like to be fully multi-platform and universal. I would like to add more accessibility APIs. I know that we don't like it as developers. We don't like to add accessibility, but I hope I will make it easy for you. As Kacper mentioned, soon we will use bridgeless mode, so I need to also cover that. I'm also looking into compound variants. Compound variants is like extended variants. We can add additional condition when, for example, size is large and color is primary, we can inject additional styles. Custom compiler for web. And right now, I'm wondering about React Strict DOM. Is it necessary to build own compiler? Can I use it? I need to explore it. I would like to also manage UI. You don't need to install like a ton of libraries to manage orientation, navigation bars, status bars. Maybe, and I think I will do it, I will allow you to modify whatever you see on the native side with Unistyles. I need to also explore static styles for server-side rendering. Right now, it's not like, they're still dynamic, and I would like to drop JavaScript totally and return you perfect CSS. And, of course, move more code to JSI, C++. For me, it's a cool adventure. And let's move back to the Unistyles mountain. Here, I dropped Expo and Chrome debugger, and I know it's not possible anymore. I implemented only this amount of the functionality, but I know that there is also a lot of place to like improve it, to add new APIs, and I'm happy about that. Thank you so much. You can find me on Twitter and GitHub with the same handle. Do you have any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Jacek, so much. The next speaker is very close to our hearts, quite literally, because he lives just around the corner of the Software Mansion office. And he's very frequent to all of our events, all of our meetups. And we often go to conferences together. So that's kind of cool. That? Ready? Okay, please welcome Szymon Rybczak, React Server Components.
So hello everyone. It's really nice to be here today. Thanks Software Mansion for having me and for hosting this event every few months in Kraków, and maybe a little applause for organizers, for Paulina and for Kacper. So yeah, thanks for having us. And today I would like to talk about React Server Components, but I would like to expand this topic to React Native part. And does it make sense to have RSC on mobile? And what possibly should we do to upstream them to the production-ready apps? But before we jump into, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Szymon Rybczak, and I'm 17 years old, React Native at Callstack. On a daily basis, I'm working on a technology team where I support our R&D and open source initiatives. I'm also maintaining React Native community CLI, and I love to contribute to all sort of open source projects. You can find me on Twitter or on GitHub under Szymon Rybczak handle. I'm trying to post there very often stuff that we are cooking at Callstack. So in software development, there is this principle that you can make something that is good, something that is fast, or something that is cheap. But you can only pick two. So you can make something that is good, something that is fast, but not relatively cheap to make. Or maybe you can make something that is really fast and cheap to make, but at the end of the day, it's not good. Or finally, you have a good product and that was cheap to make, but it's not fast and it's not usable. And that's how Dan Abramov started talk presenting the idea of React Server Components. React Server Components are new networking layer for React, and with them, the idea was to solve the problem that we are encouraging when developing modern apps. So big initial bundle size and sending unnecessary data over the network, all these problems that we are encouraging on our daily basis, that's what React Server Components are solving. And at Meta, they in some parts solve the problem with sending unnecessary data with the combination of Relay and GraphQL. And if you're not familiar, Relay is a GraphQL client for React, but starting with this tech stack is not that easy. Not everyone wants to use GraphQL in their code base, and the entry barrier is very high. So React team want a solution that will just exist inside React Mind model. So let's take a look on how React Server Components work. So right now, when we are building our apps, and I'm talking here about very simple cases to not simplify the whole concept. We are bundling everything into the client. So whenever a user hits the domain, the new bundle is downloaded, and yay, we see our components. But what React Server Components do, they are adding new layer. They are adding new server layer. So from now, we can execute our React components on a server. And this allows us to make few great things. From now, we can directly access files on the system. We can directly make queries or calls to our database from React component. And thanks to streaming, we are only streaming parts that user will see, so we are not sending unnecessary things. And this is all possible to this format. And at first, it looks like a JSON, but it's not. It's React Server Component specific format that was designed for this purpose. And it contains things like connection between components, what should be displayed and where. So yeah. But what's with React Native and how can we fit it into this whole picture? So everyone is talking about React Server Components in context of web because that's where we have production-ready implementations, for example, with Next.js. But actually, React Server Components were initially designed for using server-driven technologies at Meta. As we can read on this tweet from Sebastian Markabesh, who is right now working at Vercel, and he's member of React core team, React Server Components were initially designed for native, and that's a nice plot twist. A lot of people only think about React Server Components in context of web, but maybe they make some sense on mobile. So, as I mentioned, one of the main arguments for using React Server Components on web was reducing bundle size. But in mobile world, we don't care that much about bundle size. Thanks to Hermes and its well-thought calculating bytecode, app start time isn't really dependent on the app size, and it will be pretty much the same for the application that has small bundle and big bundle, thanks to bytecode. And there are various of apps. There are online first apps and offline first apps. And of course, for offline first apps, React Server Components won't make that sense, though there are people like Evan Bacon who thinks that SSG for mobile makes sense. We'll see in the future, and we'll see in the framework implementation. But yeah, it's really interesting space, and I really believe that later this year, maybe at App.js or any conf, there will be some announcements in the area. So let's go to the main part, and let's talk about the benefits of using it. So what are they actually changing on mobile, and why should I care about them? So I have a question. Who's ever here created this kind of navigator? Okay, so quite a few people. And let's say we are talking with our client, and we need to add a new special, I don't know, Christmas button. Cool. Like, it requires from us few lines of code in React navigation, and yeah. But the problem is with publishing. On web, all we need to do is to deploy to, I don't know, to Vercel or any other provider, and perfect, our users see the changes. But on mobile, it's pretty complex. So let's take a look at the flow of publishing mobile apps. So to publish this change, of course, we need to create this button. Then we need to build a binary app. And I'm sticking here with iOS example, so we need to drag Xcode or use ES to build our app. Then we need to submit it to the App Store. And finally, we need to wait a few days for App Store approval and then for the rollout. Yeah, so this takes a while, and a lot of users turned off the updates, so yeah, good luck. But with OTA, maybe another question. Who knows what OTA is? Okay, so few people, so I will describe this concept. OTA stands for over-the-air updates. Every production React Native app consists of the native part and JavaScript part. And with OTA, we can remotely replace the JavaScript part, so we can skip App Store review and update our app remotely. So the flow of publishing our app with OTA looks like this. Of course, we need to create the button, then we only bundle the code. But here, we are bundling, in most cases, the bundle for the whole application, and then we are uploading our bundle to the server with ES or any other code push provider. And yeah, on next user entry to the application, the new bundle will be downloaded. And with low internet connection can take a while, and also downloading bundle as a first thing users see is not the best experience. We can make that in background, but yeah, it's great flow, but it requires some extra work to do, and we need to really be careful here. So what does look the flow of publishing changes with React Server components? So of course we need to create the button. Then we only need to bundle our one component, the component that we are iterating on, this top bar component. And finally, we need to just upload the bundle of one component, not the bundle for the whole application, but this small piece of update. And yeah, finally our users see new special Christmas button. And yeah, that's really great. And with React Server components, of course, the velocity is better, and we can iterate really, really fast. And another great example are federated super apps. And at first, this concept is a little bit complicated, but I would like to explain to you how it works. So here is a nice graph showing an app split into smaller pieces. And we can think of the app like this, like Facebook app. Facebook app has a ton of modules, like dating module, marketplace module, game module, and so on. And not everyone use all modules. And bundling them into initial app is not the best idea, because initial bundle size will be very, very big. And yeah, not everyone use all modules. So we can split the architecture to make these remote chunks, to make these modules as a remote chunks, so we can access them on demand. So for example, this booking module or shopping module could be downloaded when user requests it. When users tap the button, and yeah, right now is the moment for downloading this module. But here, we actually care about bundle size, because from the moment of clicking this button, for example, for shopping module, to actually seeing the actual module, it can take a while, and especially with lower internet connection, yeah, it will take a while, and that's not the best experience. But with server components, we can speed up this process. We can make the time to interact with these remote modules a lot faster, so our user can start playing with remote modules a lot faster. If you want to learn more about this concept, go check out talk from our head of technology, Michał Pioszchała. Michał goes in details how you can scale your teams and apps with this directive. I really encourage you to watch it. And let's sum up. What are the benefits of React Native server component? So first of all, we can say that we have GraphQL out of the box. So we are not sending unnecessary data over the network, and we are just downloading what we need. Second, they're capable, so we can iterate with them really fast. We can speed up the process of releasing our app, and OTA is cool, but with React Server Components, the next level of iterating. And finally, the process of creating server components mind model took a while, and still there are things that are being discussed, but they are really well designed to work with client components and with suspense mechanism. And I'm really excited that a lot of people started discussing this topic. There are various of opinions here, but yeah, I hope that this year will be year of the server components on native, and we'll be able to use them in production-ready apps. And lastly, I would like to present you an example on how we can implement server components into an example app. So here I have Blue Sky app. Blue Sky is a new social media app. At first, it looks like a Twitter, but if you read more about this concept, it is a concept of open social media. So not one social media app is controlled by one person. But yeah, and their code base is written in React Native Expo, and you're shipping one code base to 3 platforms, to Android, iOS, and web. And let's take a look on how this screen is structured. So we can see here a few major components, and disclaimer, this is not how we really write React Native app, but just for the presentation purposes, I showed this in this way. So we have a header component with some buttons that we can navigate through. We have our feed view, that is the main component that user interacts with the list of the posts. And finally, we have tab bar navigator to navigate through the application. And when dealing with networking in any apps, we need to care about 2 more states. We need to care about loading states. So whenever user is downloading the data, or maybe they have like low internet connection, it is not the best practice to show blank screen. We need to show some loading states or indicators. And we also need to care about errors, because when there is a bad scenario, we need to show error boundary. So yeah, with some try again buttons. And this is how the initial state looks like. After clicking the app icon on the screen, this is what users see. They're seeing loading views. We are fetching our post from the database. And here, everything is bundled into client. So whenever a user has internet connection or not, it's bundled into the client so they can play with it. This is the experience that we all know. This is all native components. And yeah, React Server Components here are not changing anything. But after resolving server components, when our request is back and our server component here, feed view, is resolved, we can also play with it. And by making this feed view component a server component, we are not streaming unnecessary data. We are streaming data, so we can play with our feed really fast. And we can directly, from React component, make a queries to database. So actually, with one code base, with React, we can build all universal apps and full stack apps with backend for frontend. And React Server Components are not killing native UX feeling of the application. The end user experience is the same, but we are just benefiting in very, very good things. So yeah, that would be it. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Szymon, maybe? Okay, to the mic, to the mic, to the mic.
Do you have any...
It's not turned on.
Do you have any concerns regarding the App Store approval? I'm talking about Apple being not cooperative.
Yeah, it's really a frequent question. Thanks for asking. So we need to be very careful here. And with server components, we are just moving the barrier. And last week, I talked with Dan Abramov, who is one of the creators of this concept, and he really well described this answer. So I will quote him here. So with React server components, we are doing the same. We are moving the barrier when our React components are rendered. In normal app, we are also making network calls, and also our app is dependent on the data that we are fetching. So it's the same, but we are just moving the barrier. And with React server components, we are only sending JavaScript over the air, so we are not sending native code, which is disallowed by Apple. So yeah, probably if this concept will be more popular, Apple will have some problems, but yeah, it's Apple.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I hope it works out.
Yeah, me too. Thanks.
Any other questions?
Maybe my colleagues from school has some.
Okay. We have some at the end of the office.
Oh, it's not working.
All right. So I have a question and concerns about the security, right? Because if you said there we are shipping JavaScript code, it's definitely not as secure as just API calls, which in worst case scenario, I don't know, be attacked with like man-in-the-middle attack and simply send some wrong data and cause some errors. But here we essentially are potentially running malicious code within the application, right? Yeah. So are there any measures which you can think of that can stop these kind of attacks? Besides like, classical measures, like, I don't know, probably like SSL pinning or something like that.
Yeah. So thanks for asking. It's a great question. So it's on the framework side, and right now we have no production-ready implementation for React server components on native. But hopefully, when there will some, maybe with Expo, I know that Evan is working really hard on this concept, and it's on a framework side, and frameworks need to care about this, and probably there will be some tools which will help us being sure that we will not display some bad code or malicious code. So it's on the framework side, in my opinion. Thank you.
Yeah, I would have a question, maybe not about the component itself, but server actions. Have you ever tried implementing server actions in native and how it works?
I tried, but I failed. It's really hard to implement. It needs a lot of work in the bundler. So yeah, it's really hard. But yeah, they will definitely make sense, and we are making research regarding maybe bridging Remix to React Native. So we will have like loaders inside React Native components. Maybe we'll know something. So we'll see, but definitely they make sense.
Okay, thanks.
Are there any more? Maybe?
Kacper, maybe you have some.
Oh, I will ask later.
Sure.
Okay, so it's that. Thank you, Szymon, very much for your presentation.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Our next speaker is very close to my heart because we work together in React Native Open Source team, and he used to be my intern. So I'm very glad that he's doing a presentation today, and they grew up so quickly, I gotta say. So please welcome Tymoteusz Boba. Is React Native ready for Maestro?
Thank you, Kacper. Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Tymoteusz, but you can also call me just Timo. In social media, you can find me with that handle. In Software Engine, I am the maintainer of React Native screens. But today, I won't be talking strictly about React Native specific stuff, because here, I want to focus on Maestro, what it does, and most importantly, is React Native ready for Maestro? So, first things first, I just want to ask you guys, like, how many of you have already wrote some end-to-end test cases? Okay, great. And how many of you are already familiar with the scene of end-to-end testing frameworks? Okay, that's nice. So for those of you who don't know what is end-to-end testing, I just want to make a quick introduction of what we are going to talk about today, shall we? So end-to-end testing is a testing technique in which we are simulating various paths a user might take from the beginning to the end of a process in a live, ready-to-use application. What does it mean? Well, let's say that we, as a human, want to, like in our application, traverse from some screen to another and assert if some elements are visible there. Or maybe we could just go to some screen and check the correctness of our form. So we can do such thing in end-to-end tests. All we have to do is we need to choose the right end-to-end testing framework and write such test case. So which one do we need to choose for React Native? Well, according to stateofreactnative.com, you may know that website, the most popular testing frameworks are Detox, Maestro, and Appium. I will also quickly introduce you to the Detox and Appium frameworks, but here, today, I want to focus mainly on the Maestro one, of course. Let's start with the Appium. It is a framework that offers automation based on WebDrivers. It's only an engine, so we don't basically write the test strictly in Appium. We are using like Jest library for writing the test or some other libraries that integrates with WebDrivers. It offers good performance compared to other engines, and the Appium is very flexible to introduce functionality. But we have to write a bit of advanced code for the logic. It may be the downside or the advantage for you, depending on your use case. We can see here how the example test in Appium looks like. We can see here that we are using some Jest declaratives like describe, test, or expect. But unfortunately, even for such easy test, we need to write some configuration and maybe some code for the logic to make it work. Yeah, there's also the Detox. It is focused mainly on supporting React Native. Configuring it is really fast, like all we have to do is we need to properly configure Detox RC and Jest setup file. It works in collaboration with Jest, as I said before. It offers an API for interfering with the application under test, and it is the most commonly chosen framework for end-to-end testing. Here's how the example Detox test case look like. We are also using here Jest declaratives like describe or before all, but here we are also using some functions introduced by Detox like device, expect, element, or buy. Configuration should be also really simple. In the Detox RC, we need to configure the apps section with our build commands, the devices section with our simulators there, and configurations that will be handy while running the runner. Also, Just config looks like usual, but here I just want to point out that for the properties here, we need to point to the Detox runners. Yeah. We can see that writing the tests are pretty simple and easy, but could it be simpler? Well, yeah, absolutely. So what is Maestro? It is an end-to-end testing framework made by the mobile.dev company. As it says, it is the simplest and most effective mobile UI testing framework. It has built-in tolerance to flakiness, tolerance to delays. The iterations there are blazingly fast. We are writing the test in .yml file, where we can assume that they will be really easy to write. And also, the setup is really pretty simple. However, is that tolerance to flakiness really great? And is Maestro that fast? Yeah, we will come back to that later. As we can see here, in the table of supported platforms, there is React Native. Woohoo! But there are also some other languages like Flutter, WebViews, classic Android views, Jetpack Compose, iOS UI Kit, SwiftUI, and also .NET MAUI for iOS Android, which frankly, I don't know what is that library. But we can see that except the React Native, we can also write the tests for other supported mobile languages. And as you can see, running the tests look like this. Basically, the runners go step by step through our test, but instead of giving us the information if the whole test just has passed, like in jest, it shows us if the given step has been performed. Like here, we can see that the input, that the tap-on has been performed, and there were some assertions already done. Okay. So how we can write such tests? First, I just need to say that each test is being called flow. Each flow belongs to a single file, which means that we can't have several test cases in our flow or in our file. Each flow has configuration section and the test section where we are, of course, writing our test steps. The most basic commands are launch up, that launches our application, tap on, that taps on some object given its type, not type, ID, text, or even the position. And assert visible, that asserts if a given element is visible. Really easy, huh? Of course, our configuration section could be more advanced. Like we could have more properties there. Like here, on flow, I am using also onFlow start or onFlow complete. That onFlow start and onFlow complete is complete. Sorry, is like the set of the operations that we can choose on start of our flow or on the flow end. We can also choose the name there that will be shown in the Maestro runner. There are also more options to choose, like and we can define our environment variables, or also the tags. Tags is like an, I would say, exclusive label for our flow, where we can run our flow and also other subflows matching that tag in a runner. Maestro also offers a whole variety of commands, but we won't focus on them today. Of course, you could ask me, if we could have one flow per file, how to organize flows? Well, actually, Maestro offers two ways how to run this set of our flows. There's workspace configuration and the flow configuration. In workspace configuration, we can define our flows. Like here, I define the paths authorization, home, cart, or dashboard. We can also set our included tags there. And also, we can choose whether the flows should be run in alphabetical order with the deterministic order option. There's also the other way, a flow configuration, where we are writing basically a normal flow, but instead of writing the set of normal commands there, we are just running the subflows or the subflows that we run other subflows, and we can nest it like that. If you ask me, I would choose flow configuration over the workspace configuration because the flow gives you more capabilities, like running the flows based on the platform, like here on the end of the file. Okay, but you may still wonder, what if writing tests is still difficult? In such case, we have Maestro Studio. It is the interface where you can inspect the elements. Like here, we are inspecting some components. We can select the instructions like tap on based on the type, name, or the point represented by percentage. As we can see here, the feedback is really pretty instant. Like we are tapping on something and something is being called. And we can also assert if given element is visible. Yeah, we can also check other components, even the system ones, by tapping on the search elements button that was shown on the top of the screen. And we can check how the given component is being called. We are basically instructing the normal flow, right? Yeah. There's also Maestro Cloud, a service also run by mobile.dev folks, which allows us to run our flows on their infrastructure. For example, with simple action on GitHub Actions, we can check if our flow passes, but also other CI platforms are supported. Like here, the Bitrise is supported, Bitbucket pipelines, Circle CI, GitLab CI/CD, Travis CI, or Jenkins. In Maestro Cloud, while having an account with free plan, we are given $10 per month, but unfortunately, it's quite expensive when we check what is the price for each flow run. Yeah. For example, let's say that we have 10 relatively small flows, and we are checking them on every pull request. We can guess that after 10 commits, even the small ones, like updating the documentation, updating the comments, merging even the main branch with the current one. Even as a single maintainer, we will exhaust that limit quickly, right? Maestro can do also much more. Like, we can print view hierarchy with the Maestro hierarchy command. We can launch custom emulators with the Maestro start device command. We can record or make screenshots of our flow. We can execute simple JS scripts. There's also the support of test ID fields bundled. We can support if conditions of loops. We can simulate swipes or perform some advanced gestures. And also, we have bundled support of custom form inputs. We can mock define inputs with input random email, comment, number, person name, or text. But unfortunately, there are also reasons why I rejected this PR in React Native screens. Yeah, closing this PR as currently Maestro doesn't meet our needs and is lacking support of running the tests or runners from GitHub Actions. Well, what have I meant here? For example, Maestro is enabled to quickly reload the app during tests. You know, in the detox, there's that reload in React Native command that allows us to refresh our application. Like, it is a simple R press on our keyboard that just refreshes our application. In Maestro, you don't have such ability. You need to launch up every time when you are trying to run a new flow, which just slows down our flow run. Also, on the detox, you can, for example, tap on some elements given by its type. Here, for example, we are trying to tap the back button on iOS. Unfortunately, on Maestro, you also don't have such thing. You don't have type selector that will allow you to tap on the element given by its type, which is very sad because, you know, back buttons on iOS could be non-deterministic because we can change the title of the previous screen, and also the title of the back button will change. So while doing some flows on Maestro, we should be aware that our names could change there. Also, in Detox, you have that before each declaration. Actually, it's, I think, the jest one, which allows you to perform some operations before each of the subtests. In Maestro, you have only onFlow start, which just run once before a single test. So when we are writing the subflows, Maestro won't propagate those actions to run before each of the subflow. Yeah. Also, Maestro have that limit that one flow belongs to one file. And this may be advantage or the downside of Maestro, depending on your thoughts. But personally, I think that big amount of files could be a huge mess in the long term. Also, GitHub runners are quite too weak for running Maestro flows. Like here, I just launched an example flow that was just traversing from one single screen to another, and I was asserting if given elements are visible. As we can see here, Maestro has failed on some assertion. Unfortunately, it's undeterministic and it's quite random where it fails. But just a small point here, at the time when I was running that flow, I was using macOS 12 runners. I've heard that right now you have an ability to choose the runners with M1 chip on GitHub. So Maestro could work better there, but you still cannot use runners with Intel CPUs. There are also other smaller but still problems, like with the tap on command on Android, the command sometimes tries to click twice. Yeah, Maestro unfortunately sometimes thinks that it didn't tap on the element, and it tries to do that twice. But hey, wasn't I talking about the fact that Maestro is tolerant to flakiness? Yeah, exactly. And even if it's a known issue, and there's a solution for that, like here on the Maestro wiki, you can see that everything we need to do is we need to add retry tap if no change option. I can't imagine such mess in my test cases, like adding this option on every tap on. There are also other problems, like no ID hints. On each new flow, you need to add app ID. And also, community support is quite pure. Like, that happened to me several times. But you know what the worst thing is? Unfortunately, Maestro is not as fast as it should be. As we can see, while iOS seems to be really quite fast, and drop it. Android really sucks there, speaking of performance. And even if it seems to be like a problem with Android version, because apparently on lower Android versions, flows were running only a bit faster, Maestro has still assured us that the iterations should be blazingly fast, right? Okay, but even if Maestro has some things that needs to be cared of, even if maybe it's maybe not that fast on Android, despite everything, I'm not rolling this engine out. Why? Well, because some time ago, someone has ruled one thing, and that was a huge shot in React Native community, wasn't it? Well, okay. Actually, the true reason is that Maestro still seems to have potential. Like, even if there are some things that need to be cared of, it still have some game-changer features. And I think the most big one is the way how we are writing the tests. After all, I finally wrote that we should come back to the case of moving our tests to Maestro in the near future, when it will just match our requirements. How can I help? Well, since Maestro is open source, you can always change how it works, and I highly, highly encourage you to contribute to the Maestro repo on GitHub. Contributing to open source is really fun, and as a maintainer, I can just say you are more than welcome. To summarize everything, let's answer the question. Is React Native ready to Maestro? I can proudly say yes, but there are still things that need to be cared of, and you should be aware of them when you are writing your own Maestro flows. Any questions? Yeah, okay, Kacper.
So here, okay.
I tried Maestro 1 or 2 years ago, and I have one question because I'm not up to date. I remember that there were a problem when I was writing a simple test on iOS and Android, and it took like 5 to 10 seconds to click on button. Was it resolved? Like, I'm not talking about the overall speed of the test, but clicking on buttons were so slow that I couldn't stand it.
Okay, so are you talking about iOS or on Android one, or both?
I think both, yeah.
Okay, so on iOS, I think that it has like improved, because when I was testing the test on Maestro, as you could see there, well, maybe I can just move to that, or maybe the HDMI cable is not working. Yeah. Like here, when I was testing it, you can see that basically, I think the video has ended. I don't know. Okay, so it was clicking. Like you could say, it's like improved, because when I was looking at the test, I have some voices there. Okay, it is like quite faster, I believe. So the action like takes 1 second or 2 to perform. But on Android, there's a problem when you are clicking on the component. Like we need to really like wait 3 or 4 seconds to perform some actions there. So yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
Second question.
Yeah. I think I have 2 questions, in fact. But first, I want to mention that I may be wrong, but I've got the impression that Android has some like general problems with it, and iOS simulator is usually faster, even with Redux. But I may be wrong.
So I think that the Maestro test works normally on Android. I just wanted here to point out that on Android there are some problems. Maybe I wouldn't say bigger than iOS, but when you're like testing your application on Android, it should work as usual as on iOS. So, yeah, you may feel that I was trying to show that Android sucks for Maestro.
Oh no, that was not my intention at all.
Okay, but yeah, I just wanted to point out some problems on Android there. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and here's the question: is Maestro operating on a build application under hood as Redux does? Because you mentioned that there's far less configuration with Maestro, but in Redux RC, so Redux RC gives you the possibility to actually like prepare your tests for the debug version or the release version, like production ready. And,
okay, so you're you are asking if what is the difference between the Maestro or detox between the Appium? Because I.
So I mean that if you want to like run detox tests,
okay,
you have to build your application, right?
Yeah.
And in this detox configuration file, you can specify whether you want to assemble a debug build or production rebuild, etc. Yeah. And then detox operates on the very build application.
Okay, yeah, so in Maestro, you need to have like your app installed on the device. So you can just like, build the test app or choose the configuration in the Maestro because like you need to have that app prepared on your phone.
Okay, so Maestro just doesn't do it for you. And you, for example, let's say you perform some flow and there is some data in the application. If you want to rerun the test, you have to manually erase this data?
Launching an app again with the launch app command should be sufficient. So you don't have that need to just reset that data. But you can just fast refresh it like on the detox as I shown.
Cool. And my last question is: is Maestro aware of the state change, and can it like use it to its advantage? Like for example, in detox, you can put your app in background and then resume it.
I believe not, because like you are talking about state changes on React, right? Or the whole app state changes.
App state changes, lifecycle changes.
Okay, so I believe yes. I believe you're yep, because like there are some comments like wait for animation to end. That just waits if the screen is static. I might be wrong, but it may just listen also for the life cycles if there are some running updates there. So maybe yeah, but I haven't dived deep into the Maestro that far. So,
yeah, I got it. That's kind of an edge case. But on iOS, I believe it's important because iOS is making you, for example, I don't know, close WebSocket connection when you go to background and stuff like that. So I just found it helpful once. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Any questions also, guys?
Yeah, another question.
Okay.
So just to continue this thread, just to make sure, does it support running on physical devices or is it only on the simulators right now? Because I also have a similar case that you might have mentioned, so.
I think that I've tried actually to run it on physical device, so I think, yeah.
Okay, so that's all from my side.
Okay, nice, great.
That's all of the questions, I think.
Okay, so if there are not any questions there, if you just want to chit-chat with me about the Maestro or any other specific React Native specific topic, like even the React Native screens, well, don't hesitate. I will be just walking somewhere there.
Thanks, Timo, for presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, so that wraps our official part of the meetup. And the pizza is coming. I think you have some topics to discuss with other people. So please stay to network, to talk to our recruiters right there. And yeah, have fun. Bye.